The waking moment awaits us all, upon a threshold or where the road turns. If life is pulled, sparks like moths inward, to this single sliver of time, gleaming like sunlight on water, we will accrete into a mass made small, veined with fears and shot through with all that's suddenly precious. And the now is swallowed, the weight of self a crushing immediacy. On this day where the road turns comes the waking moment.
All right, hello and welcome to the Legendarium Green Team's Malazan series. Welcome to episode 1 of the Reaper's Gale series. I am Huron Fan and I'm joined today by the Befuddled Panda.
Yo, what's up?
Yasta's a boy.
Hello.
And the other guy.
Hi,
Panda.
good to be back.
Yeah. Panda is now the only newbie. But it's been a long time since we've talked, so let's shoot the shit. Panda, what you been up to? Share what you feel like sharing.
Share what I feel like sharing. Been doing a lot of traveling, not a lot of reading.
That's very
And
true. I've seen your Goodreads.
I've been reading some, like, I started This Is How We Lose the Time War, or whatever, you lose the time war. And it's a short book, but I still
Very
haven't
short.
finished it. I need to finish it this weekend.
Relatable.
And I saw you posting all these pictures from bookstores. You're just a poser now, eh?
I'm such a poser. I went to so many bookstores in France and London, and it was great. But
Shakespeare and Company. I'm very jealous.
yes,
Mm.
and Waterstones and Piccadilly. Yeah, I have a lot of books that I want to read, and I can only read so many. And right now, it's Malazan, so.
Malazan and Sandman. Don't forget
And
that.
Sandman, which
Upcoming
I do need
series.
to. I need to finish Volume 1. I started it. I'm like halfway through.
There you go. It won't take you much longer, like a whole long time, I
No.
think. Yeah,
It doesn't take long. I read it in a month, the whole thing.
Yes.
Yasna?
Working a new job. Well, the same job, but in a different place. But it's like everything about the job is different because it's high volume instead of low volume.
That was a hell of a sigh.
Huh?
I said that was a hell of a sigh you started with.
Yeah. It's a lot. And I have a new favorite board game, so I think since we talked, that I'm obsessed with. And I'm also obsessed with writing this article I'll probably never finish about The Expanse and the changes they made to the politics of the story world when they adapted it from the book to the screen.
I look forward to never reading it.
And yeah, I'll send you whatever. If I ever just can't look at it anymore, I'll just send you some version of it for your eyes at least.
Hey.
But and then you can never read that. So you can have it but never read it if you want. I also finished.
That's what hoarding books is for.
I also finished the Book of the Fallen, and it is really hard to read any other fantasy, including other Malazan, since then. Which is part of why I've been so obsessed with The Expanse, because I'm like, away from fantasy. This is easy to read.
Are you saying that Malazan has ruined fantasy for you?
No, I don't know. I just it took so much to get there, and I just need a break. I don't think it's ruined fantasy for me. I mean, I've had moments where I enjoy 10 hours of fantasy book and not finish it, but I enjoy it for those 10 hours. Like I started Shadow of the Gods. Is that the sequel?
I think that's the first one.
It's the first one.
Hunger
of the Gods.
Hunger of the Gods. They have the same title basically, but yeah, I started Hunger of the Gods, and I enjoy it, but I just can't I have trouble following through with any, including Malazan, any fantasy. I've been reading Fall of Light for 1,000 years, and I'm on chapter 4 or something, and I started a sale, and I'm not getting anywhere there, and so it's just yeah, The Expanse is so easy. It's my brain can just follow along effortlessly.
It is quite easy.
Yeah.
It's easy to follow, but it's pretty deep.
It is, yeah, and that's what I like. I like that, I'm still getting that depth, so it's hitting the same neurotransmitters, brain feel good, depth in the reading, but I don't have to try. It's great.
The Expanse really peaked for me. I haven't read the books, but in the show when Jared Harris was on screen, and it's
God,
never
he's
hit
so
that high
good.
again.
He's so wonderful. And when I read Dawes scenes, which are just as few and far between as they are in the show, so far at least, I'm only on like book 3. I see him as Dawes, so it's like I get more of him on the screen, in my brain.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, you should read them. They're so easy to read. Right.
Well, that's actually a disincentive for me.
But they're deep.
Give me, yeah, I believe you. I think there's probably a lot of merit to reading them. It's just the way to get me to read a book is like this is dense and difficult, and not many people read it.
Read Janny Wirtz then.
Oh yeah, I've actually been reading
her stuff, but I just don't have time for it right now.
I've been reading Legend by David Gemmell, and it's not the same at all, but it kind of harkens. It kind of reminded me of Janny Wirtz, and was like, yeah. Now they made it through the first book, I should really get to the second book in that series.
I've heard that's where everybody gets hooked, is the second book.
I can believe it. So long as some of my issues with the writing style are resolved, then everything would be good.
Ash, what you been up to?
I have been working, which is a nice change of pace from school, and I have successfully bullied multiple groups of people into playing board games with me in person, which is great because I can just kind of swap them out as needed. When one group gets tired, then I can just slot another one in.
Dude, this has been my life for the last 3 months. And then I have a fallback group with my wife and daughter. And sometimes that can be 2 subgroups.
I've really been, I've really been enjoying Spirit Island and The King's Dilemma, and I've been playing a few others like Azul and Castles of Mad King Ludwig. And today I read that Frosthaven is finally getting shipped out. It's finished production, which is finally, because I've been on. I kickstarted that game, and Gloomhaven is of course fantastic.
I can add that to my collection when it gets to my doorstep of Gloomhaven games that I don't play but sit on my shelf.
I've heard of Gloomhaven.
It's
the others
a
I think you made up.
huge time commitment.
I was gonna ask how many hours of gameplay is that?
Gloomhaven, it monopolizes your gaming table, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's also a really good game. So
the reason we haven't played it is because it's I'd have to convince people to play that, and the convincing is all going into War of the Ring, and sometimes Terraforming Mars, and sometimes Root. So I'm the hierarchy. I just Gloomhaven will never beat War of the Ring in this hierarchy. I'm just gonna play War of the. I started reading the Silmarillion because of. Oh, that's the exception, by the way. I can read Tolkien. As far as fantasy, which I didn't like Tolkien as much before I read Malazan. Now I'm just obsessed with everything Tolkien. It's partially because it's a board game.
That's hilarious.
That's awesome.
I mean, Tolkien's really good.
Yeah, it is really good. It is.
Silmarillion is not that hard.
To my daughter.
Oh yeah, Silmarillion isn't that hard. I put a medium.
I think Lord of the Rings is more difficult.
I agree. But I don't think I would have agreed with you as a teenager. I think for an adult, Silmarillion is easier to read.
So Ash bullied some people, and that means bullying works.
It does, especially if it's for a good cause, like
board games.
Like board games, or they're just not fitting in well, and they need to get the message, that they should move on and find new people. Then you can bully them as well.
Unironically, it actually happened when I was a teenager.
Oh, horrible.
My friend used bullying on me to get me to stop doing crazy shit, like continuing to wear the shirt that I got hit by a car in, even though it was covered in blood. And yeah, he was just that's fucking weird and it bothers people. Stop doing it. And he really went off on me about it. And I had never worn it.
I had friends like that again, and it was actually really helpul.
Yep.
Give you some perspective.
Is that bullying though? I think that's just showing you concern.
No, it's adversarial and therefore bullying.
There was yelling and insulting involved. I feel on some level that's bullying.
Yeah, it certainly felt like bullying.
It's not just hey, you shouldn't do that. It's hey, you're making people feel weird and you need to stop and stop being an idiot, So
It is good advice to stop being an idiot. Here, and what's up with you?
I'm gonna be a daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's terrifying. I'm really, really scared of that, but excited. I I've been reading a lot. Reading's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
get that reading
same old,
in
same
before
old.
that baby comes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know. Well, I figured as long as they're pretty small, I could still just keep reading what I'm reading. Just read it to them.
If it's any consolation,
Yeah.
I was terrified too, and then newborns are so easy, and then you get to experience all the things you're terrified of now when they become toddlers.
Yeah.
So you have like 3 years to wait.
They're easy if they're sleeping is good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
they
boy
sleep so
slept.
much.
And that was all about it. He slept and ate for like a year. Like
Yeah.
it's easy.
After it's born, we're gonna go through. I'll be the primary caregiver, but I'm not looking forward to the sleep schedules.
Mm.
Hey, more time to spend on the Discord, right?
Mm. I might be on American time for once.
Oh, there we go.
OMG.
So anyone wanna share anything they've been enjoying lately?
Oh,
I liked
Like
House of the Dragon, the first 2 episodes.
Mm, mm, mm,
I watched
mm.
episode 1. Haven't made it past that yet, but that's just a time thing. Seems
I feel like I
promising.
wouldn't be myself if I didn't rail against the indecency of weekly releases of television shows.
Yeah, Huron.
that's what this podcast becomes. It's not Malazan anymore. It's just Hiran will tune in once a week to tell us why weekly releases are bad.
They are.
I agree.
We're inconsistent bi-weekly releases. So
Super inconsistent. You know, hiatuses, sabbaticals.
I can't think of anything that I really, 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 really liked. Oh, Piranesi. That was really
Yeah.
good. Piranesi was really good.
I liked that one as well. Probably the best thing I've read this year.
The new Thor movie was garbage. So Taika Waititi let me down.
I've been really liking a lot of indie movies that I've been watching, and this one isn't an indie movie, but Alienoid. Oh, that's an excellent South Korean fantasy sort of movie.
Pretentious.
No, it's like everything that I actually want from the MCU. Well, if we want to talk about pretentious, I've roped a lot of people in the server into reading about literary theory. That's been interesting.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. If anyone is interested, we're reading the book Beginning Theory by Peter Barry.
Recommended by Mr. A.P. Canavan.
Yep.
Nice.
Some really excellent discussions, I think.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes we even get past the postmodernist thing.
Now, if someone keeps roping us back in. Panda, did you share anything?
I've been honestly, what have I been enjoying? I've been enjoying life.
You've been enjoying Mr. Anderson?
I haven't read that.
You haven't
do
read
you mean the board
Life?
game?
No, not the board game. The real thing.
Wait, I'm sorry. I read Book of the New Sun and it was incredible. Okay, sorry.
Oh,
you could go on, Panda.
The first book was good. I haven't gone farther.
I read all 5 and my life has changed. Sorry, Panda, go on.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, I haven't been reading a lot, so I can't really share book-wise. But yes, Mr. Anderson and I are doing very well. Except I'm not looking forward. Well, like, I'm looking forward, but also not looking forward to planning a wedding. Like, it's just.
Oh, is this how you're going to announce you're getting married? I gave
This
you the
is-
opportunity 10 minutes ago, and now you're like, oh, I don't want to plan the wedding.
We just went down to the courthouse.
That is very tempting. But I also want to respect, like, his parents and my parents. And
Oh yeah, we
don't
didn't
wanna
give a
have
crap about
parents.
any of that stuff.
Go to a fancy restaurant with them.
I put on the nicest thing I own, and she put on something because she was like pregnant, so whatever. And then we went down, and there's some beautiful pictures of it. That's it. We were married.
Aww. Aww.
But have a big wedding if that's what you guys need to do.
I don't want a big wedding. I don't want to.
I had a
deal with that.
medium-sized wedding after getting married at the city hall,
Hmm.
and then a way too large reception in Japan.
See, I would have liked to do something like that if we had the money for it at the time, and we might just like do something like that eventually anyway, even though it's
The
been like
reception's the good part.
Yeah. I've been to a lot of weddings.
Over the course of our relationship, Lady Ash has slowly scaled down her wedding plans from like big and extravagant to like maybe we'll get together with friends and something and play board games.
Dude, you gotta marry her now. That's awesome.
Right?
If that had been, I wish I would have come up with that. Honestly.
Yeah, one of our friends got ordained as a minister through like an online online things. So I'm just gonna use him.
Church of
Nice.
Life, Unity, whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
I motion we start.
Seconded.
Okay. Sounds good.
First set of summaries, or first summary. Prologue. Scabandary gets the inside of his skull rearranged by Kilmandaros. Red Mask comes home.
Scabandary?
Scabandari. Gabby.
Gabby! Just
Let's
Gabby.
call him Scabby.
Okay.
I really liked this prologue.
Yeah, this prologue was metal.
It was metal.
Like I was soaking in the descriptions.
I was too, though I did still struggle to picture Kilmandaros, so I just Googled images of her when I first read it.
She's such a cool addition to the series. I love Kilmandaros.
Is it just me, or does it sound like she's a mix between like Emas and
Bellman Toblikai?
She to me
Fulcral
she
Assail.
seems like a almost like a proto Assail or something like that.
But with really big hands.
Yeah, like a I don't know. Like a cross between an ape and an Assail.
But she's all unga bunga, as the kids say.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know what that means. The first that I heard of that is there's like a philosophy and politics podcast called Alpha Bunga Bunga, and I don't get it. So please help me with this.
Unga bunga is kind of like it's a whole vibe, you know, and you get most of it from the word itself, or unga bunga. It's kind of like
I don't get that.
Ape-like mountain gorilla going after things, you know, like a rock man or a golem. You know, it's like he's unga bunga.
I've never heard of this.
What about Grunky Donkey?
No, Kilmandaros is not Monkey Donkey, or I don't know.
Grunky Donkey.
Grunky Donkey. Yeah, no, she's unga bunga.
I don't buy it.
She has one mind track, and it's solve the problem with my fists.
I wish the dragons would come down here so I could punch them.
Yeah, right. And then
she kills a lot of dragons for the fact that she can't fly. Like, why do they keep giving themselves? Why don't they just like chill up in the air and blast her with warrants?
You don't want to make her that angry. Like, she's gonna find a way to mess you up if you make her really angry. It's kind of just like, I wish there was dragons nearby so I could punch them.
But she's.
Don't we all?
Why do they keep flying down to her? Is what I want to know. I mean,
I don't know.
Logistically, she couldn't get them if they didn't let her.
Okay, I think it's fair that dragons are not exactly logical.
Yeah, they're very
fueled by rage.
Yeah, fueled by rage, desire to betray everything that they. I don't know. They're very chaotic. They're very chaos oriented. So this kind of ordered Sun Tzu thinking you're trying to force on them, they're not going to have it.
That ordered to be like, if the enemy can't fly, stay in the air and shoot them.
That's advanced military tactics you're talking. You can't expect a dragon. It was basically just an animal to do that, right?
Aren't there flying animals that don't give up superior advantages on purpose?
Clearly not dragons.
Right. Okay.
Maybe they're too egotistical. They're like, I can take them.
I think is also
absolutely
a factor.
part of it.
Yeah, I believe that, especially given that, like, of all the dragons we've seen, like Solana, Rake, and Two Swords guy. What the hell is his name? The albino.
Silchus Ruin?
Yeah, that guy. Silchus Ruin. Those are the only like 3 dragons that we've
only
met
one of them is a dragon, even.
Like, that aren't just like super chaotic. Yeah, but they have blood of dragons.
Well, Solana is a true dragon, and Animander and Silchus are just kind of like soul-taking who fight against their draconic nature, right?
Right, but like everybody else who's a dragon that we've seen is very chaotic.
Yep.
At least, yeah. And very like prone to... Oh no, I guess not. I guess Rake's little cadre of black dragons aren't either. What's up with the Teist ability the ND ability to suppress that?
I think they're just kind of using their depression to keep it under wraps.
Also, it's been tens of thousands of years.
Yeah.
The Eater aren't like that because they're not as depressed. Is that
Yeah,
what?
exactly.
Is that it? So that's why they're more draconic.
Well, like Silchess said, it's really hard to keep it down, especially when you veer. So it seems like over time, it's something that you can maybe control better.
Or fall prey to.
This, if correct me if I'm wrong, is this the first time that we've been in Gothos's perspective?
Yes.
I love Gothos.
He is. I have a lot to say about Gothos, but a lot of it's spoilery, and we'll have to wait for the spoiler episode.
Yeah, isn't it such a baller move that he pulls here? Is like, hey, I can do this for you, but you owe me a favor, and then right afterwards, like, cash in my favor.
Yes.
What was the significance of using a torn piece of shirt?
I think it's just a joke.
I think it's just a joke too, but I don't know. Maybe it's important.
He's a troll, right?
Says, I'm always delighted, he said, when a betrayer is in turn betrayed, in this instance betrayed by his own stupidity, which is even more delightful. We saw Rake too?
We saw Rake, and he came by. He was like, all right, Kilmandaros, I'm going to help you guard Starvold Demolane.
Did he seem different to anyone else?
Different.
Well, so I say this because they were talking about Osirk, and Rake says, I can picture Osirk circling round and round looking for me. Idiot. I don't know. It's like current day Rake, I couldn't imagine saying that, especially in the way that I imagined it. It's like, oh, stupid Osirk. What a dumbass.
But he doesn't have to deal with Osirk in the modern day as much.
I don't know. He just seems so solemn and serious, and maybe just not as deriding of. He's still funny, but
he's so tired.
Yeah.
He's so tired.
I feel you, Rick. If I had to do this for 20,000 more years, I'd be tired too.
I think it's hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, I think it's like 300,000.
I mean, Gardens of the Moon, he tells Baruch like 20,000 or something like that. But Gardens is not necessarily.
Gardens is Gardens, right?
Yeah.
They call them. Yes.
So maybe I'm remembering that wrong. I did read that earlier, but actually, the thing I wanted to comment on with Gothos is not for the spoiler episode. It's in chapter 5 of this. I got my wires crossed. So I just want to bring it up now because we might not bring it up in chapter 5. Is the Gothos's Folly, which is like kind of like Herodotus's history, but for Malazan, is a multi-volume suicide note, and he never committed suicide.
He's still writing it.
Yeah. Is he really still writing it?
Yeah. He's still writing it. Yeah.
What?
No, that's what. What do you think he does in the Azathos all day?
They say that he never finished it, that it doesn't have a conclusion, but I've not seen any evidence that he's still writing it. And I mean, every time it's referenced, it's like people like digging up like ancient scrolls and stuff. It's not like, oh, the new volume of Gothos' suicide note just dropped. If he's still writing it, he ain't publishing it.
The nature of Gothos' Folly is brought up in Carcanus. It might actually be in Fall of Light that it's really discussed. So
at the end of Forge of Darkness, I think.
Yeah, what's said about it there makes me think that he's just kind of he just keeps writing it.
He's just a troll.
Yeah. Right, you give the troll under the bridge cosmic power and you get Gothos.
All right, so what do you think war canoes look like?
Big.
That's a good question.
Big canoes.
Big canoes? What makes them war?
Their bigness.
Okay.
Maybe
they're
war
intended
paint?
to like carry soldiers' equipment and material on to like do mass landings of soldiers.
Okay, let's see. War canoes, I'm pretty sure were actually a literal thing that existed. So yeah, it looks like they're big canoes. Here, I'll share the image that I found. There we go. Big canoe.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
That's humongous.
That's a big canoe. Yeah, you would probably take like big trees and hollow them out, basically. I would
Gronky
imagine.
donkey.
But I could be wrong.
Why do you keep trying to make that a thing?
Dude, it's already a thing.
I've never heard it before this.
You heard it like 10 minutes ago at least.
Yeah, some mysterious people have landed on the shores of Letheras. Panda, do you have any inkling of who these mysterious peoples might be?
Who are they again?
We don't know.
People that
They're
came in a canoe, or many
big
canoes
wolf
actually.
canoes.
Lots of canoes.
Lots and lots.
Atri Preda Vivat thought that there was going to be a lot of them.
What did they say it equated to in troops? Like 500,000?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was 500,000.
Did she say it? Let's see.
Yeah. It was like she was saying there's like maybe 100 per canoe, like 100 people per canoe, and there were like 4
4 to
rows.
5,000.
Yeah.
So that'd be like 500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
500,000.
500,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I said.
we know math. I don't know. Telanimath. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's a spicy theory.
Just kidding. I
Well,
don't
why do
think
they
it-
need canoes if they're Jelana?
I know they don't.
I mean, maybe they're just regular old Damas.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
There's half
Yeah.
a million regular old Damas chilling somewhere.
Oh, read
Hobbit.
and find out, my friend.
God.
It's war hobbits.
War hobbits.
Wow.
We also see Red Mask. We'll just note that.
Oh yeah, that's a guy.
Hello, Red Mask. He's coming back from his exile. He thinks some thoughts.
He's got a red mask.
Yeah. He comes on the dead gray swords. Poor dead gray swords.
Yeah.
Love you, Grey Swords.
Too soon. Okay, chapter 1. Back in Letheras, we are introduced to the Patriotists, a propaganda/torture arm of the current government, and the Liberty Consign, a collection of wealthy businessmen. Over by the All Plains, Atri Preda Bivat and Overseer Brawl Handar discuss the ongoing Letheri plans to conquer the tribes. Sulchus Ruin saves Ketelin Udanas from slavers. Tehol and Bug continue their schemes.
Anyone else think it's kind of a bold move to start the book off with Tanal Yathvanar?
Like the name?
No, just like the Patriots in general.
Oh, the Patriotists. I think it's a great way to show the current state of Letheras, right? And the start to explore the interactions between the Eater, who are ostensibly the like aristocratic class now, and how they're being incorporated into the Letheri system.
Or being closed off from it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about the Patriots, Panda? Patriotists and the Liberty Cosign.
They're
Consign.
there.
Yeah.
They're there.
They're there. I mean, I think it's more for like what Ash is saying. It's to have a way that is basically showing what's happening internally, like with the Eater takeover, but it's not just because they like have this unkillable king doesn't mean that everyone is, really bowing to their will. They're kind of just still doing their own things and scheming.
They're outwardly bowing.
Right. But in reality, they're scheming, which is more of like it's setting up for some climax later on in this book, I anticipate, where betrayals will happen and tables will get turned. So it's more just setup.
Did y'all notice that the first puzzle that Karos and Victad was working on was at least attributed to Ubal Lapung?
Oh, interesting.
What?
I missed that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Invectad was talking to Tanal Yathbanar, and he says, a Tarthanol half-blood, if you could believe that, sir. Here in Letheras, the man is reputedly a simpleton, yet possesses a natural talent for solving puzzles.
Oh.
I mean, I can totally believe that he solves puzzles. Like in an Alexander the Great, I'm just going to cut the knot kind of way.
I imagine that was just Tehol
Yeah.
trying things out before he gave his ultimate puzzle.
Oh, wow. Talk about something buried in the subtext. I didn't even think of that.
I think probably people generally have a tough time getting into Reaper's Gale. I think a large part of that is the names for the new characters are so hard to keep track of and keep straight.
I hate them.
Right? Because, like, Malazan, the series, generally has characters with very distinctive names and very catchy names, right? Like Sorry, the Assassin Girl, or Whiskey Jack. That's a fun name, right? Or Cotillion, that's a dancer. That's a thing you can do. Shadow Throne. He's a shadowy guy that sits on a throne. But like all of these names, like Tanal, Yathfanar, Rautos. What's his name? Rautos. I don't know, something. Yeah, Ivanar. Karos Invicted, like, it's impossible to keep all these names straight. Steve, why did you do this? I understand why you did this. Not everyone can have good naming systems.
I like Rautos Heavenar, and I don't confuse him with anyone else.
Well, I think part of it is also, I don't know what these names mean. Like, if I had a better understanding of the meaning of the names, or more like attributes to associate directly to the names, that would be helpful. But because we're getting like basically little scenes with each of these characters, and there are so many different scenes just like interwoven, it is hard to keep track. Like, you're not spending really all that much time with one character at a time, or one set of characters.
And the Patriotists, I know that they're intentionally written this way, because they're supposed to be these like kind of like pretenders that think that they have all this depth and that they're superior to everyone, but they're really like venal and empty. Like, and it's like the narrative even like comments on this. But it's hard for me to care about them, and when it's hard for me to care about multiple characters that are new and have these names, that's why I like Ratos Hivenar, because I'm like, oh, that's the artifact guy. So I know, and he's like in the Liberty Consign, and he's like a real person that like he has depth. These other guys, I'm just like, they're all like interchangeable almost, like, and they're just, I don't care about them. So it doesn't help that either.
I think Karos Invicted has depth. He at least has intellectual justification for his actions, and this intellectual justification reaches more than a layer deep, right?
I think part of it was I had such a hard time keeping track, like, who was Letheras and who was Eater, because it from the names, like, I don't.
Yeah, can you guess that Tanal Yathfanar is Eater and Karos Invicted is Letheras? No, no one's gonna guess that. Maybe
that's a game we should play. Is say a name and then guess their race.
Oh, guess their ethnicity. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great.
Sog Chirok.
Well, I know that one.
Yep.
We also get to see Silchus Ruin again. Oh boy, I love Silchus Ruin. He's the youngest brother. I'm a youngest brother, so I feel like I kind of have a bond with them. My skin is also very pale, so
he's the most edgelordy of all the brothers of that family.
He's out to prove something.
He's yeah, you know, and
Silchus is fine.
Not as edgelordy as Clip, who we meet later though.
Clip is so emo.
Clip.
Everyone hates Clip. I don't think a single person has read the series and was like, I like Kit Clip. You know, he's a cool guy. No, everybody hates him.
Really?
Yeah, it's so bad.
Like, it's not like a kind of overriding hatred like Bidithal, right? Or Malakral.
Okay.
He's just annoying.
He is annoying, and he's annoying on purpose, and I feel like he doesn't deserve to be as annoying as he is.
I don't think I've gotten enough of him yet. Like, I've just gotten to him at the end of book 1.
Yeah, he was just in the end of chapter 6, right?
He's already started like 3 fights since you met him, and it was like he's on page for like 3 pages, and he's like starting fights with like 3 different people.
With 3 different people who probably deserve it, though.
Udanas? I don't think Udanas deserves anyone fighting with them. Udanas needs a hug.
They all deserve hugs, but they're also just terrible to each other. Except for Kettle. Kettle's nice.
Sorry, I didn't mean to tangent us into chapter 6. I was just briefly, and then everybody. Sorry.
Okay, we can all agree that we're happy to see Tehil and Bug, though?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, that was fun. There was like that specific line, because, you know, Erickson does what Erickson does, where it's just like, okay, so this character is saying blah, 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 and you get just like dialogue back and forth, and he doesn't actually say the names of people. But then there was a specific line that was somebody said, and I was like, oh, I know who these people are.
What calculations? Well, the ones I asked you to do for me, of course. Where are they?
But there was another one. It was something. It's always about like what they were eating, you know.
In this book particularly, Steve doesn't do clear breaks between conversations, and then he'll go from usually the
No.
Letheras straight into Tehol and Bug's conversations. And
Yeah.
they kind of seem like the first line, at least, kind of seems like it works in both contexts.
Yes.
Yeah.
The one I'm thinking of is it's just I think Yathvan are just doing something terrible because he's a terrible person, and then it goes to Bug saying, or maybe it's Tehol. He said, "Depravity holds a certain fascination, don't you think?" And Tehol says, "No." So we go from
Yeah.
the depravity
Oh.
of Yathvanar, and then Bug saying, "It's kind of interesting, isn't it?" And Bug just saying, "No, it's not."
Mm-hmm.
The audiobook narrator helps me a little with that because the voices change.
Oh yeah.
But if it's not dialogue and it's description that sounds like it's supposed to fit there, then it's just in the narrator's voice, and it's like I'm like, what? Wait, did we change scenes? Who are we?
Deep question to ask.
Who are we?
Who are we? What are we doing here? How do you know how much a drowned cat weighs?
Oh my goodness, that. Oh yes.
They actually weighed it according to him.
You think he actually did it?
No.
No, I don't think so.
No.
The feral cat netted in the Renest estate, the one raping a flightless ornamental duck, who was sentenced to drowning.
No, I don't think that's real. Speaking of rape, though, a serious moment here. Kettle.
Yep.
And she said a line, "Being alive is hard. I'm always hungry and my feet hurt." And my thought is, wait, is Kettle pregnant?
No.
No.
I think she's
Okay.
just saying something that everyone can relate to.
Yeah.
They have been walking
Okay.
a long time.
I mean, yeah, that line's
Okay.
nice, but like right after that, she says, "What else bothers you about being among the living again, Kettle?" She says, "Feeling small." That's the line that got me.
Yeah.
Poor cat.
But I don't know. It was just the way that it was written, where they were talking about her getting used and then her saying that. I guess maybe I'm more sensitive to.
The slavers are the ones carrying the weapons to the all.
Mm-hmm.
Neat, eh?
Oh, we find out more about that in later
Later on.
chapters. Like,
Yes.
what's going on? There's that academic
Janath.
that yeah
Love her.
that what's his face
And
is beating.
Yathvanar.
It's gonna take me so long to
Yep.
like
You
get
can
these
just
names.
You don't even have to remember that guy's name. You can just be like the monster who's beating and abusing her.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that part was, I guess, at this point in Malazan, it's like it's not unexpected. It's just yet another sad moment.
And I like it's he looks at her and he thinks to himself that it's not important that it's him that does the beating, just that she was beaten. And to me that's like feels even more twisted in a weird way. Yeah, this guy is quite depraved.
Yeah, and like the that kind of thinking of like, well, because at some point he's thinking like, well, she wants to be beaten, and then
Otherwise she wouldn't make these protestations.
yeah, and then later on, further chapters, it was like, well, I gotta make sure I come and beat her and take care of her. It's just so twisted.
And then he's ordered to release her, and he just doesn't.
And he doesn't.
Do you think Invictad knows?
Yeah,
Maybe.
That he didn't release her, I mean?
I think if he told her to release her, then he would want her released. I don't think he like especially cares though.
He's not like following up.
Yeah.
Did you release her?
You know the prisoner
I
told you to
haven't seen
release.
her around. Yeah. I did find that specific line I was talking about that tipped me off that it was Tehol and Bug who was speaking, because they were talking about a wax slab, and then they were like, oh yeah, we had that wax slab for lunch. Every time they talk about what they eat, it's just so, I'm just like gagging, but at the same time I'm like, no, they couldn't have eaten that.
Yeah, they can, because Bug just makes it edible.
But it's
mostly edible.
Like I think Bug does like the cleaning up afterwards, but I think it's just as horrible as it would be to eat all these things.
Right. Well, he just makes it makes it nutritious instead of poisonous, right? Essentially, but it's like still gross.
I think he just directly nourishes Tails' body in kind of like a multivitamin kind of way. But
Yeah, like cooking anything, right? It's like the that nourishment's in the food.
I think Tails could just not eat at all, and then Bug would just make sure he's fine. But I don't know
Then
the
why?
exact mechanics of
Why
it.
did they eat then?
Because they're trolls. And they're really committed to the bit. Like, they don't need to be eating garbage anyways, right?
I like my interpretation.
I did make a note that Brol Handar.
Yep.
It wasn't until I was reading Brol Handar that I then got actually interested in this book, because he was like laying it out really clearly, like what the Patriotists were doing and like what's all happening with whatever that dude, the Factor guy.
Gross and Victed?
No, Letter
No.
Letter Anic.
Yeah. So, and I was like, okay, cool. He made it very clear what's going on. And I was like, this guy is the most interesting one in these chapters so far.
He's a nice guy.
I know it's not too popular, but I actually really enjoy the how-to 1984 manual that we're getting here.
I agree. I also enjoy that.
Yeah, I like this book a lot more after book 2.
Most people do.
Oh, okay.
Most people do.
I feel like the whole series just takes off and never stops after book 2 of this book.
Well, then I have really high hopes. I mean, this book might be my favorite in the series so far, maybe after Gardens of the Moon.
Wow.
Interesting.
Unexpected,
Your tastes continue to shock and amaze me. And I'm here for this.
The beginning of chapter 1 was like pretty painful, not gonna lie. And then once I got to him explaining, I was like, okay, cool, things are clicking. And then after that, it was just pretty much, on the up.
I expect most things will be making sense to you at this point. Just how like the Malazan world works and the things Steven Erikson likes to bring up, and like you're no longer wondering about Warrens very much, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this book is my favorite or Bone Hunters, but it's this rocky start that makes me unsure. But by the end, I'll probably be like, no, it's my favorite.
We've already gotten into chapter 2.
Okay, I'll read the summary then. Chapter 2. The heroic quest enters the ruins of a buried Forkrulasail city. Karos Invicted receives a new puzzle. Tonal Yathvanar receives some private tutoring from Janath. Red Mask starts causing trouble along with his reptilian sidekicks, to the dismay of Brol and Bivat.
Isn't it a Kachane Chamal city?
That's right, it is. The Forkrulasail didn't build cities. That's a Kachane Chamal city, not a Forkrulasail city. Yep.
That's cool.
Oops. I mean, they're basically the same, right?
They're ancient.
Yeah, no one cares about them. They're all dead.
No.
They're not gonna.
Okay,
they're not gonna play
chapter 2. Like chapter 1 was Yeah. Chapter 2 was like, that's where it got really exciting. And then when Red Mask showed up, like we actually got to see more of him. And then I found out the Kachange Mall were like his guardians. Like what?
Yeah, that's cool.
That was fun.
Yeah, Red Mask is cool, and the Kachane stuff is cool.
It was really fun. I mean, okay, fun is like probably not the right word, but it was very exciting reading how he just demolished all these soldiers, the guards. And it's just one dude in a mask with his whip and his axe.
Double-headed axe, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's really cool. Now, is this the chapter where we get the viewpoint of the settlers?
No.
Okay.
That's the next one.
Okay.
No, it's chapter 4.
That's the next one.
The next one. They all are blending together in my head.
Yeah, that part's all really cool, but everything that I highlighted was basically from Kairos and Bechdad's mouth, or from Janal, or not Janal,
Janath.
Janath
is really cool.
I love
really
Janath,
like
but
yeah.
does anyone else kind of think like she's just kind of Steve's mouthpiece at this point?
Is that a bad thing?
I refute any notion of relativism. Doesn't
Um,
excuse self-evident injustice. Status quo is not sacred.
I don't think that she's his mouthpiece. Like, I think she does a lot of things in the story that he wouldn't necessarily do. But yeah, I think she does express a lot of the refutations he has against Karos Invicted's philosophy.
I think this was the part where I was like, this seemed like Erickson was breaking the fourth wall a bit, because at the beginning it doesn't really say whose thoughts these are. It's just like, is that inner monologue from her? I think it's in this
She's
chapter,
giving
right?
a lecture.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's very colloquial, like the conversational, right? The way that the words are written. So it really did feel like, the author is talking to the reader. I was like, whoa, this feels weird.
So can I just be Janeth as a boy instead of Yasna? Because this is just a better example of the same archetype that I was going off of when I made that handle. And I don't read Sanderson anymore. So like,
yeah.
Identity change.
Should we just call you Janeth as a boy from now on? I'm fine with that.
yeah, do it.
Um,
It's the same archetype. It's just better. Like
a rechristening, as it were.
and it even is the J name and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, without quoting everything that Karos and she said, I just said I really like this chapter for those reasons.
I mean, I will be quoting something from Karos.
You're not allowed. I'll cut it.
I want to quote something from Janeth.
Fine, you guys could take it.
Yeah.
Mine's just her spitting fire. It's not like one of the insightful monologues. It's like her spitting vitriol at him.
Stop beating me up, you bastard.
She says, you think you have all the answers? You must, given the ease of your voice judgment. Well, you pathetic little creature, one day uncertainty will come to your door, will clamber down your throat, and it will be a race to see which arrives first, humility or death. Either way, I will spare you a moment's compassion, which is what sets you and me apart, isn't it? It's just so devastating. She's got this guy's number, and it's not the only time she does it either, but it's the one I highlighted. I love it.
I like. It's probably not this chapter. I think later though, she does a psychoanalysis of Karos and Victed. I think it's probably just on the money.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I have the Karos thing. It's kind of just a lecture. I'll try and not be too slow. Who poses the greatest threat to the Empire, Yathnar? Fanatics like that one below, Tanal replied after a moment. Incorrect. Listen to his words. He is possessed of certainty. He holds to a secure vision of the world, a man with the correct answers. The prerequisite questions were themselves the correct ones, goes without saying. A citizen with certainty, Yathnar can be swayed, turned, can be made into a most diligent ally. And then, skipping it before. Take away the comfort of the convictions, then coax them with seemingly cogent and reasonable convictions of our own making. Their eventual embrace is assured. Tanal Yathvanar, our greatest enemies are those who are without certainty, the ones with questions, the ones who regard our tidy answers with unquenchable skepticism. Those questions assail us, undermine us, they agitate. Understand, these dangerous citizens understand that nothing is simple. Their stance is the very opposite of naivete. They are humbled by the ambivalence to which they are witness, and they defy our simple, comforting assertions of clarity of a black and white world. Yathvanar, when he wished to deliver the gravest insult to such a citizen, called them naive. And then
so, is he saying that their greatest enemies are people who ruthlessly criticize everything that exists?
I wouldn't say that. I think he's saying that the greatest enemies are those who just refuse easy answers, right? Simple narratives imposed on the world and given by people like Karos and Victed.
You refuse easy answers, aren't you ruthlessly criticizing everything?
Well, you're not ruthlessly criticizing everything, right? Like you can hold to some worldviews, like you should be kind and you should have compassion for people, and you don't necessarily need to criticize that ruthlessly, right? You can question it, but you don't need to be like, oh, you're stupid for believing in anything, you dumb person. I'm just going to not believe in anything.
Not what I meant by ruthless criticism. It means when you're presented with certainty, you like I don't mean like
pick it apart.
Disparaging criticism. I'm talking about like deconstructing things that people are certain about and seeing if you agree, including your own certainty. It's a Marx quote. I was trying to be funny. It doesn't matter.
I see.
Good one, Yasna.
Oh god. Kara says this to what's his face?
Yathvanar. Now Yathvanar.
Yathvanar. But then there's that later scene with Janeth where he is being so certain, but then she's like picking apart his certainty and reasoning, and then towards the end you kind of see him feel some doubt, right?
Well, then he just lashes out against her.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see how the interactions between Janath and Tanal Yathvanar go. I am obligated to just bring up how Udanas is a cool dude. I think he's just mocking Fear's self-righteous quest that he thinks he's on, and then displays a greater feat for heroism than Fear has displayed in the entire quest so far by his acrobatic maneuver into getting into that cave. And good on you, Udanas.
Isn't he also kind of like criticizing the narrative and like the structure of fantasy narratives in the process too?
Especially the
Yeah.
quest group.
Mm-hmm. And people say that he gives Fear a hard time. Honestly, Fear deserves it. And as is noted, Fear actually would kill him if it wasn't for Silch's ruins. So, Udanas deserves this. He was enslaved to this man for decades. Was it?
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I also find him insufferable.
Insufferable. Damn.
I agree. He is
I
insufferable.
think, for the amount of abuse this man has taken from
I don't
literally
blame him.
everybody he knows.
He's been
right?
through a lot, and Fear's
Mhm.
terrible, and like this whole group is just a mess. But he's also just really annoying.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's not just like he's really annoying. He's just so negative. And yeah.
I think he's very pessimistic at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
He has reason to be. I understand it.
Mm-hmm. And is he saying anything that's incorrect? I don't think so.
No, we'll get to that later in the book though.
Mm.
He spits some real dumb stuff later.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3.
Teaser.
Nizal reflects upon recent events and her current station. Bruthin Trana discovers that Rulad has been isolated from his eater by Chancellor Triben Noel. The errant ponders his next move. Tehol and Rucket investigate the possibility of shrinkage. Shurk Alal decides to sail back to Letheras.
Funny. I love Nizal. I think she's great. I like her sections, and I like how much sympathy and compassion she has for Rulad. And I like how hard Rulad is trying to actually be a good ruler and still failing.
I see what you did there. Her sections.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm cutting that. That's inappropriate.
We can't acknowledge the characters have sex.
No, sex is not real.
No.
Tell
Especially
that to
not
Shirk.
in books that we read in Cells.
Especially not Shirk,
oh man, she'd be so sad.
Nizal is my favorite new character in this book. She wasn't in Midnight Tides, was she? Or at least
She was.
I really like her. She has a lot of potential.
She was in Midnight Tides, but she didn't have a whole ton. Like
Yeah.
she was just there.
Yeah.
She was.
Because we knew
present.
she was the concubine.
Okay.
Briss had a couple conversations with her.
Now I need to reread those.
I mean, Midnight Tides. Oh.
It's one of the only books of the Fallen I haven't reread.
This is just your life now, just rereading Malazan.
I can just do a search of the Fallen for her name and reread those. Anyway, I like her character. She seems like she has a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm.
But she's just nice.
And she's
like
trying to do the right thing.
He's cool. Yeah. I also like how Rulad is genuinely trying to be a good person, a good ruler, at least.
Yeah, and he's hopelessly caught up in the machinations of the Letheras state machinery, and he has no idea.
And he misses Troll, even though he's the reason that he's gone.
Yeah.
It's
And he's
tragic.
just so insane. And when he has sex with Nizal, she says that he's like a boy. And that's
Which is
tragic.
what he is. I mean,
Yeah, by the standards of their society, he's a man, but like he's so damaged and insane at this point.
he didn't get to grow up
There's
normal.
no way out. Yeah, and that's the really sad part is he has absolutely no way out of this whole thing.
I mean, hey, maybe Nizal's gonna manage to figure a way to get him unisolated from everyone he knows and cares about.
Nassau versus the Letheras state machinery.
Well, Nisal and what's his face that later
Ruthin
shows up
Shrana.
at her.
Eater guy. Eater guy number 5.
They talk
Yeah,
in chapter 5.
I like
I
Rhythm
need better nicknames for these.
Yeah, Ruthin Shrana's a nice guy.
He is. He also seems like he has quite a bit of potential.
Yeah.
Anybody want to see a pygmy blood sucking bat?
Is this in the book? This is related to the book?
Yeah, Teho
Yeah.
got bit by a pygmy sug bucking black, and
Oh yeah,
he was chastised for it, and he thought it was a mosquito, but he really couldn't tell the difference.
he killed it.
Yeah, because he was visiting someone who was shrinking her animals.
The whole
That was
fat
cool.
Roo thing was really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Tail and Rocket are such a great pair.
I was not expecting that.
That he would fall in love with someone from the Rat Catchers Guild. Well, love. You know,
Well, is it
they got good
love?
chemistry.
I mean, yeah, it's more just I like how indirect their conversations are, yet how direct it is also.
Yep.
It's just
It's fun to
it's
read.
very them. Yeah.
And I like that she basically just talked him into being impotent.
Oh my goodness. That must have been like if they had role played this, that must have been so fun.
Oh yeah. Who got to play Rocket, I wonder?
Yeah, I've never played with a role playing group that would do anything like that would all be behind veils and what do you I don't know what to call the other thing, but there's a term for it in RPGs where you like decide what's gonna not be discussed.
There is.
Safe
I don't
words.
remember what it is.
It's
but-
veils and something. Veils is one thing, and then the other thing's more like a hard, like no.
Yeah, hard. We're not going to discuss this. Yeah,
Right.
Gotcha.
it's not going to be brought up in the story.
Well,
whatever.
I think that part, the whole fat root thing, it was just like I can feel that Erickson had so much fun
Mhm.
writing that section because it's just like everything leading up to it, like selling leaky pottery and like pots as like measuring cups or like pots not as pots but as clocks, and the whole just like the yellow tea and the toxic dye, the selling unopenable boxes. That's just like your imagination running wild and putting it on the page.
And
so.
the woman who lives in mud with leeches sucking off her.
Yeah. I want more of silliness like that.
Yeah, it's always nice when he lets loose his silly side, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to read the Bacalé novellas. It's all
I will.
all the silliness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just nonstop. It's so good.
Especially Crackpot Trail.
Oh yeah, especially Crackpot Trail. But they're all just so goofy.
I do think I have that one. So, can I just read it now? Do I need to read anything before that?
Well, probably don't read it on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean,
What?
you
No,
should
I
wait
mean-
until we're finished.
Yeah, just down the recording at least. Then you
Can
can
she
read to
read
us if you
Crackpot
want.
Trail without reading the first like 4?
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually legal for you to read it on air and like us publishing it like that.
Oh my goodness.
You guys are being helpful.
I got a quote from this chapter. Can I share it?
You may.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so it was in Tejal's head. After all, tyranny has no excuse of humor. Too thin-skinned, too thoroughly full of its own self-importance. Accordingly, it presents an almost overwhelming temptation. How could I not be excused the occasional mockery? Alas, the patriotists lacked flexibility in such matters. The deadliest weapon against them was derisive laughter, and they knew it.
Yep.
Make fun of fascists.
Make fun of fascists. Make fun of authoritarians.
Watch Jojo Rabbit. It's really good.
To actually answer Panda's question, I think some of the humor in Cracked Pot Trail relies on expectations set by the earlier novellas, but
Ah,
you could still probably read it and be fine. It's not like as much about spoilery as much as like the previous one set your expectations and it like adds to the humor.
I see.
and definitely imagine Apto as AP.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a that's the book where AP is introduced into the Malazan story world as Crackpot Trail
Okay.
as a
Got
character
it. Got it.
named Apto Canavalian.
In a cannibalist story as a critic.
We haven't talked about Shirkalal yet, but honestly, I don't find her bits in this book very interesting.
They're
Really?
quite funny.
She just like comes across a sunken ship, and or a ship, and it's like, I guess gonna head back to
But
Letheras.
she gets to play out her pirate
Pirate fantasy,
fantasy.
absolutely, and good for her. She's living her best life.
And her
I-
first mate
Yeah.
is a dude missing tons of body parts. That's fun.
He just keeps losing limbs.
Yeah.
The I liked the bit with the pottery with
Mhm.
Coltane and the crows
Hmm.
that they found in the hold.
Shows you a bit about
Yes.
how the legend is spreading.
Yeah.
And why is that in the hold of a Ty-Steeder ship?
Right. And why is it filled with like blood?
Because they were consecrating something.
Right, they
Yeah,
were
so-
consecrating like a temple to Shadow. Well, we actually know why that's in the hold of an eater ship is because of the stuff in Bone Hunters. But why is the ship abandoned and what happened? And I don't know. It's a fun little mystery.
Oh, so I should know. I've forgotten. I
They
don't.
were on 7 cities, like killing people and causing trouble until what's his face?
Parsa?
Parsa?
Parsa was like, "Hey,
Mhm.
you better stop." And they were like, "Okay, but you have to come fight our emperor." And he was,
Oh, right.
yeah.
Right.
And then they went to the first throne and they all got killed.
Okay.
A lot of them did.
A lot
There
of
are
them.
a lot that
So
didn't
at
die.
some point in all of that, they got the hold of these Coltane bases.
The pots.
Yeah.
The formal name for that was the what? Amphore or whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
I had to look that up because it kept coming up and I was like, I don't know what this word is.
Greek,
And then once
isn't it?
I looked it up, huh?
Greek, isn't it?
Yes,
Hmm.
it is.
I had to look it up too, by the way.
Yeah, once I looked it up, my first thought was, yeah, an anthropologist or an archaeologist would use that word.
Come on, Steve, you're getting predictable.
Yeah, did you notice how many times it said potsherds?
I haven't seen any
I've
ochre
come
this
to
book, though.
expect.
There's also a bit where they're lamenting the lack of potsherds.
Yes, I saw that.
Ah, no, chapter 2 has ochre in it.
Oh, okay.
Chapter 4?
Chapter 4. Red Mask takes charge of his old tribe and repossesses some stolen property. The heroic quest discovers some of the history of the chain. Silchus shows his soft side. So this is the chapter where Red Mask murders those poor settlers.
Yeah, I really liked that scene, and it was really touching. And I like. There's a similar scene in Deadwood. If you guys have watched that,
Nope.
it's a Shakespearean western. So anybody who's into like Shakespeare, Malazan, all that kind of stuff, watch it. It's amazing. It's a Shakespearean western, gritty, grimdark, lots of modern cursing in place of the curse words they would have used. Really fun show. But there's a scene where a sheriff is the sheriff of Deadwood, or somebody who ends up being the sheriff of Deadwood, is leaving the settlement to go after the guy who murdered Wild Bill Hickok, and he runs into a native, like a Sioux warrior, and the Sioux like attacks him, and they have this like grappling fight. But the reason that it reminds me of it is because like there's like you get both sides, both viewpoints in both the Malazan one and the Deadwood one, and they're like both there for reasons that like have nothing to do with like personally wanting to kill each other, and have everything to do with these like bigger historical and systemic imperatives that are happening that are like way bigger than they are. And like one of them ends up dead and the other one doesn't, and it's just this tragic, like kind of heart wrenching thing that like it really kind of brings home like, that these settlers aren't necessarily like there because they want to like rob or kill the natives or whatever, even though they're like directly benefiting from that having happened.
Yeah.
But they're just like trying to get their life, to eke out their life, as I think Erickson illustrates pretty well with the like little backstory you get before they all get murdered by giant dinosaurs with swords for arms.
It's a very one-sided engagement, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Although I will say, Red Mask is there because he wants to kill them, right? Like he
Isn't he there because he just wants the herds back though, not because he wants to kill them?
No, he says multiple times in these chapters that like, yeah, there's like all these big reasons to fight the Letheria, right? Like losing their way of life and whatever. But like for him personally, it's about vengeance and about killing them.
Oh,
so
well, okay, fair enough. Then it doesn't quite line up with the Deadwood scene, but
yeah, the dinosaur is sort of like that though. Yeah, right? They don't necessarily want to kill this guy, this poor child.
You're right. Abysard and company really, by any rights, shouldn't be there, but they are there, and it's a tragedy. Even though, like,
Yeah,
they're really in the wrong.
it's complicated, right? Like they're trying to build a new life for themselves away from the slums of their city, and like this is like the chance that they were given, and they were probably promised all these sorts of protections, and like legally the land is the Letheries now, even though the all were kind of sort of screwed over by the Letheri, and also have double agents working in their tribes. It's a whole thing.
right. And the historical circumstances around Deadwood at the time are very similarly muddied.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a treaty with the Sioux and all kinds of stuff. So
I think my grandfather-in-law was in Manchuria, so it's kind of a similar situation.
Oh, that's a whole can of worms.
I mean, I think Erickson did it really well to humanize the situation, and it's not just, oh, you are bad. Like one side is bad and the other side is faultless. Yeah, it's a very effective storytelling.
There are definitely
and lots of relatable historical similarities.
There are definitely bad actors on both sides. I will say, like, right, like, does anybody really care, like, or have any sympathy for the Factor letter Anict?
Sure, yeah.
I also think
awful.
I also think that Red Mask is a bad guy. Whether or not you think he's in service,
he's a cool bad guy.
A cool bad guy.
He's got a red scaled mask and 2 dinosaur friends. Are you really telling me he's a bad guy?
He is a bad guy, but
he's a bad guy.
Well, he was also orphaned, right? He's
got his whole tragic backstory.
Trauma. Yeah.
And he was exiled from his tribes for being too warlike.
And he stands up for Talks Company that they all betrayed, which is awesome. He's like, hey, you guys are all cowards.
The political cause and the political actions he takes to try to get his vengeance are, for the most part, like, I sympathize with. So I want to root for him, even though he's a bad guy.
That's a situation where, like, I have no idea what the correct answer is. Besides, I guess, like, the Letherii agreeing to not be expansionist. But, like, obviously that's not going to happen, right?
Right, it's not going to happen. But it's hard not to root for these guys who are getting
absolutely,
like, fighting back, you know? I mean, which isn't to say that, like, oh, their society is perfect and they're just these innocent victims or whatever. But, like, you know,
because they're, like,
it's easy to sympathize with them.
Like, would things have, like, Bruthen Trana, like, he thinks of, like, how sad it is that there's this escalation now, and he feels like he could have gotten them a better deal if things hadn't turned this way. There's a lot of nuance. I'll say. Silchus doesn't murder a bunch of people. Good job, Silchus.
No, yeah.
That was very kind of him.
Yeah. I think
I'll think that next time I decide not to murder a bunch of people.
Just to murder some people.
I mean, it did show that he's able to, like, rein it in and he's not just like this bloodthirsty soul taken.
No.
It like and it kind of like belied everything that the rest of the quest party was saying about him. Yeah. Like up till then, I don't really know enough about him for sure up until that to know if they're right or not. And it kind of shows that, like, they're all kind of talking out of their butts about him and his personality.
And like, it's never really too late to write. Like, it's never too late to actually try and persuade someone to do the right thing, right? Like, that's what Seren Pedak is doing like the entire time, and she actually partially succeeds here. Good job, Seren. Like, the others didn't seem inclined to do that. They probably thought it was useless.
Well, are you saying persuading him not to kill them all?
Yeah. Like, that was a good thing that she did.
But
like, he would have killed them all if it hadn't been for her.
So, see, that's interesting because when I read it, I kind of read that as like she was assuming that, but like doesn't really know his intentions because she's not in his head, and that he may not have intended to kill them all along.
How I read it, like initially, it seemed to me that he was planning to kill them all, right? Like, that's what he was telling them, at least, I think.
I mean, he did say something like that he didn't care about any of it, but did he really like say like I'll massacre every single person there, or were they just assuming that's what he was going to do when he said he was going to go deal with it?
Let's see if I can
I
find
feel
the
like he was a
conversation.
little more like oblique about it, but maybe I'm wrong. I read it as they were making bad assumptions, but maybe I've misread it.
I read it that way as well. Like
Which
they
way?
were gonna think bad about him, so he was just gonna play into their expectations.
I mean, then that would be a very Animander Rake thing to do, which like brothers. So yeah, Rake always kind of seems like he like lets people think he's gonna be this bloodthirsty backstabbing traitor, and then he like does the right thing anyway.
Which is good though, like for his reputation.
Yeah. He does say, I do intend to silence everyone in that fort and collect for us some horses. So I guess it depends on what you assume he means by silence. What I assume he means is that I'm going to kill everyone so that no one can talk about us. But
I think no. Yeah, see, I think he wants them to think that. I don't think he's necessarily saying that. I think he's doing the Rake thing, where he like leaves it up to interpretation, and then like does what he thinks is necessary, and which is not necessarily the worst thing that you think of when he says that.
But like, he does know that leaving them alive will not silence them, right?
Unless they just are so
scared that
blown
they don't
away that they can't speak.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how humans
Or
react
they're
to these
all
sorts of things.
unconscious.
I knock them all unconscious, and it doesn't do significant brain damage.
Yes. I have a quote from the section where Kettle is just like, why don't any of you like each other? I like all of you, even Wither. I just love how innocent she is. And then they also talk about her innocence, Udanas, and who is it?
Saran,
Wither?
I think. Isn't it?
Oh, Saran.
I don't remember.
And then they said they got to kill her.
I know! Like, what are you talking about?
Poor Kettle.
Do you agree with Silchas when he says that if it wasn't for his worshippers, that the crippled god would have been healed long ago?
I was just wondering that. I'm wondering if it was in this chapter that we started getting that question.
Yes, I think so.
Chapter 4.
All right,
I think he's right, because isn't it the whole thing about the gods is that they do rely on their worshippers for their quote unquote power, right? And if your power is, I guess, whatever the cripple god is, then yeah.
Your role also shapes you. And so, like, Hood is... maybe Hood's a bad example, but all the gods in the series are shaped by their worshippers and what their worshippers expect from them, and it's kind of like a reciprocal relationship, right? And we kind of see this with Shadow Throne. Like, he has Iskarel Pust as his high mage,
right? Wait, so does that mean if like somehow they just convince everybody that death is not real, then Hood would just like lose his power and then there would not be death?
I think he would lose a lot of his power. I think that death would still be a fact in the universe. I don't know.
So the problem that I have with this concept is that in Memories of Ice, it really feels like he has a very small number of worshippers that he is awful to and makes them awful. And before that, what made him awful in the first place if he didn't have a bunch of worshippers?
The initial
he was
the initial
Yeah.
like right. So that
But
so it's
why
more
hasn't
like
he-
he's in pain. It seems more caused by the things that all the other gods and ascendants have done to him than by the way his worshippers are.
I think it's a big part of it. But, like there's this power in the world. I don't think he's just started getting worshippers now. I think it's probably risen and fallen across the years, basically. And, he's been a thing that people have known about for a long time.
But
Yeah.
there's not really an indication of a cult before Memories of Ice. Yeah, I could say more, but it would kind of be spoils for prequel stuff. But yeah, I don't know.
Chapter 5?
Sure.
Chapter 5, Sukul Akhandath gets some grub and negotiates with Hanan Mosag. Karos learns the rules of a certain puzzle. Janath and Tanal argue over the nature of Karos. Menandor meets the Errant, then Shadowthrone and Hood. Nizal begins to make political moves of her own.
How do you pronounce Sukul's name?
Sukul Akhandath?
I thought it was Akandu.
Oh, maybe. Oh, yeah, I probably misspelled it. It's Sukul Akhandu, I think. You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Yay.
So at the beginning of this chapter, we get a lot about sea turtles, basically.
Sea turtles, man.
Giant sea
Big
turtle.
ones with opposable thumbs.
With opposable thumbs. And this is where Erickson made me actually Google if turtles have opposable thumbs. They don't.
They don't.
They really don't.
Sad day.
That's what sets seasons apart. Yeah, so a lot of attention was given to these turtles in this chapter. Like a lot.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's a metaphor waiting there under the surface. I didn't have the time to reread it and think about
With
it.
brain power.
Sure.
Well, it's like
too.
these turtles, like, they specifically hunt for birds' nests and takes them over and like use the bird eggs as food for their newborns. But then these turtles will also cannibalize and eat their like the eggs of their own species. It's like,
And
but then they also like
Oh.
they only come back upstream to their, spawning grounds or whatever every however many years. So then it's anyway.
And
Yeah.
they'll
Actually, that
sometimes
makes a
wait
lot
by
of
their
sense.
nests.
I realize what the metaphor is, but I can't share it.
Their metaphor for cicadas.
Sure.
Is that what happens with cicadas too?
Cicadas, some of them, depends on the species, only wake up every like 7 years or something.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
they're very cyclical.
They like go to sleep.
Yeah. What else happened here?
Lots of gods talking about god stuff, like Hood
Yep.
and Shadowthrone and Skul and Kadu and the Errant.
yeah.
I really liked the gods having a tea party.
Yeah.
Is this the first time?
And we got to see Hood.
Yeah, there we go. You've seen Hood now. I think it's the first time in the series, right?
Yeah,
No.
it's like the first time he was on page.
No,
Yeah.
Memories of Ice.
Memories of
Memories of Ice.
Yep.
Oh,
He
yes.
showed up briefly.
Twice, I think. At least once. He shows up when Bricolian dies.
Okay.
We had a whole chat about it on the podcast.
This was so long ago.
I'll take your word for it.
It's a real thing. Bricolian's death was so cool that Hood showed up and was like, "What up?"
Yeah, Hood shows up for it. He doesn't really have any conversations, right? Besides the
Well,
one with
he
Quick Ben,
he
I
makes
think.
commentary about is it Manandore and
Menador?
Shadowthrone?
I pronounced it
Manador.
Menador. But
Manador and Shadowthrone's what?
Their deal.
Yeah. And he's like, you guys are worse than advocates, right? And you should know what I do with advocates in the Hood realm. And then Manador's like, what are advocates? And Shadowthrone had to explain to her.
They're lawyers.
and then he says that he once considered killing them all, but was convinced not
Yeah.
to by the royal advocate.
Yes.
He said it was be a bad idea. I loved that.
Oh man, I love Shadowthrone so much.
You know what? There's a real dearth of fiction about Kellanved's reign. Like, I hate that it's all other like people reporting on it afterwards. Like, even the prequels don't go into it yet.
He's the master of illusion.
I want to read Kellanved's reign. I want to like be there for that.
And also, I think it's Is it Hood or Menendor that makes fun of him for just having a cane that he doesn't need?
It's Menendor. She's
Oh,
like,
man.
Yeah.
she calls it an affectation or
Yeah.
something. She's like, don't talk to me about affectations, or I don't remember the exact stuff, but yeah.
Shadowthrone might actually end up being my favorite god in the series.
Good.
Dude, if you like Shadowthrone, you really need to read Path to Ascendancy.
I'm going to at some point.
It's yeah. There's a lot about Shadowthrone that would like be context for these scenes, even.
I just kind of imagine him as Steve these days.
Okay. What warren do you think they were meeting in, the Errant and Menendor? Menendore? Because the Errant just says, "A pleasant place. What warren are we in?" And she says, "You would not believe me if I told you." Ah, he nodded. That one. Very well. Your
Yeah.
sisters conspire.
Starville Demoline, maybe?
I was thinking Starville Demoline.
But
Really?
but Kellenbed asks for access to Starval Demoline in that conversation.
Exactly.
What?
That's why I think it's Starville Demoline.
Oh,
Oh, because she has access to it.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe she brought them there. I don't know.
which
Okay.
kind of
Okay.
Tais is she?
She is Eater, I believe.
It could be a fragment of Emerlon.
I consider that as well, yeah. But is that hard to believe? I mean, everybody's been in Emerlon.
Yeah, everyone is in Emerlon, especially Shadowthrone.
I like how Kellenbed is still like in there enough that he like curses in Hood's name and he's like, sorry.
Oh yeah. That was great. There was this one line when I saw it, and I was like, "This is how I feel reading Malazan." It was, witnessing is one thing, understanding is another. Like, I'm reading all these words, and I read them, but do I understand them?
Yes.
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 I think you
No.
have good understanding. Uh,
I wanted to read the epigraph at the beginning of this episode, but it's not a poem, and it's really long.
Oh, at the beginning of this chapter.
Yeah. But it's some really good stuff. I don't want to read the whole thing because it's long, but I encourage our readers to open up Reaper's Gale to chapter 5. And yeah.
I have the entire epigraph highlighted and I sent it to my brother-in-law and was like, every time I read this epigraph, I think of you. And then he was like, what is it from? And I was like, Malazan. And he's like, I should have known.
Do you read this epigraph often, Yasna?
Well, I read it once when I read the book the first time, and then I read it again when I read it this time. So that's twice.
Okay.
And both times I thought of my brother-in-law instantly.
I don't know, just
Both
when I hear it
times.
every time I think of like more than twice.
I may have reread it when I thought we were gonna record a lot sooner. So maybe 3 times. But regardless, I mean, at both times I was like, "Oh my god." Well, my brother is a union organizer at his job, and he's like he listens to like the Rome guys have that Revolutions podcast, and he's like super into labor history. So I like him. The obscure guild that the guy speaking is from like reminds me like French.
The Guild of Sandal Clasp Makers.
Yeah, and so it's
Yes.
and he also has a tendency to get drunk and rant about people like in power lying and how the truth is gonna, blah blah blah. Like he has like this like very like this integrity that's rooted in honesty, and he like goes off when he gets drunk about it, and like everything about it, it just screams the whole speech, the everything about it.
So the full thing is too long, but I think the last paragraph is good to read here, and if you want to.
Hear and read it.
Nope. You could read it.
Oh, well, I don't mind if I do. Consider this, then, a warning. Liars will lie, and continue to do so, even beyond being caught out. They will lie, and in time, such liars will convince themselves, will in all self-righteousness divest the liars of culpability, until a time comes when one final lie is voiced, the one that can only be answered by rage, by cold murder, and on that day blood shall rain down every wall of this vaunted weaning society. And honestly, if Steve wrote this today, I think people would be like, oh, this is too much of a modern political book.
Dude, I swear to God, the first half of that paragraph, I've heard my brother say those exact words, like without quoting it. Like, I swear, this guy is this guy wrote this speech through Steven Erickson somehow. He's always like, yeah, one day their lies are gonna catch up to them, and and he says that about people too, not just about like people in power. Like whenever he sees people lying constantly, it's so on brand for him.
Something that I have to tip my hat to Erickson about is just how well he understands and is able to capture and articulate so many different like roles and personalities and like just different kinds of people.
Different perspectives.
Perspectives. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, like this sandal class maker is like a whole character, and it's like just here. And like I can see this guy in my head, and like the implication that he was impeached for being a radical because he's the impeached sandal class maker.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's so much is implied just from this epigraph in terms of world building. It's so good.
You can say the same thing about the epigraph from chapter 1, because I think it was from a woman who was drowned shortly after her speech or something like that.
I feel obligated to talk a bit about the Hanan Mosag. Look at him; he's still making political moves. And also the Errant. Honestly, Erastus is a cooler name. That's all I have to say about that.
Was 5 when Handar met with Nisal?
Yeah.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, and they start making like a coalition.
Yes.
I like this too.
Oh, there was one part. So Janeth, chapter 5 is where she has that whole internal monologue. And Janeth, I think, is the one who used the term spiritual economics, which personally I hadn't heard like that term used before, but it totally makes sense, and it makes me think of Catholicism.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, every conversation with Janath, I think, is interesting in this book.
I agree.
Michael Fletcher has a similar concept of the afterlife in his book, but in his world, belief creates reality, and it's like that. It's like literal. So, people believe in the warrior's credo, at least warriors do, where the afterlife is full of all the people you killed waiting to serve you. But then it's like a chain because, like, when the person who killed you dies, you serve them, so it becomes like this like weird hell. Like, it's so wild. It's very similar to what Janet described, but different.
Also, Janath's lecture to herself, I feel obligated to point this out as well. The Letheras city built upon another city, which is probably could change them all, which is neat, right? Although there are.
I'm sorry. I am still, because me being human in this world, that sounded really weird. I am still having a hard time.
Thank you for reassuring us.
I promise I'm not an alien.
Are you a reptile, though? Maybe from below the surface.
No, I'm not. Promise.
That's what a reptile would say.
I have such a hard time thinking about these dinosaur things building a city, especially when a lot of them also have swords for hands.
So, most of them don't actually have swords for hands.
I know, but
yes.
like,
yeah.
When I think of them, I do think of more like T-Rex, and then the T-Rex has such small
Still picking up the blocks. This is why their society fell apart.
Okay, I'm sorry. What you wanted to say?
But believe it or not, everything that you just brought up is answered in the later.
And also, we do get a bit more information on the civil war between the short tails and long tails, I think, in here. Could be misremembering though, but yeah.
Why did the Jaghead have a city here?
Oh man, they had cities everywhere.
And is the implication of what she was saying that the Jaghut were like helping the Kachin Shamal try to like avert a climate change catastrophe? Or I can't remember. I've read this thing.
I have
Like-
thoughts on that, but I don't think I should share them right now.
I also have some more thoughts on it that I can't share, but those questions were rated acceptable for this episode.
This is where they're despairing about the lack of pot shirts.
Plenty of ancient devices, though.
Plenty of mysterious ancient devices that they can't move or interact with, and they don't know the purpose of.
And they're like replicas of each other or something.
Yeah. Interesting.
Wow, that's super weird.
Yeah.
Guys!
And they're so old. You know, there's the likelihood of them coming into actual play in the plot is negligible at best.
You know what they're gonna be? They're gonna be like robot parts, and there's gonna be like an activation thing, and then they're gonna all like come out of the earth
And
and
like
then
big Gundam
join
fights.
in. Yeah, like
Man.
Power Rangers.
We learned that Karis Invicted was a failed scholar at some point.
Who's surprised? No one.
But he would not refute your assessment of his career as a student. Driven by emotions back then, incapable of a cogent position, leaving him writhed with anger about himself, his own failings. But years later, he learned that all emotion had to be scoured from him. Only then would his inner vision become clear.
He became a victim.
Yes, and then she says he's a victim, and then he beats her.
I love her. She's the best.
We do get to see Janal, right? That's the queen.
Yes. Former queen.
And how former queen, and how disgusting and twisted she is, and also basically possessed by the crippled god.
And he's also nice to her.
Yeah, Nissal's still very nice to her.
This is the moment where I was like all aboard Team Nissal.
Yeah. But she is trying to figure out a way to free Rulad.
Yeah.
But like, doesn't Janal say something to her about Master's almost done with them? Almost done.
He does. Yeah, she does. Yes.
So it's like the Master's almost done with the Eater, but then what's gonna happen to Rulad?
I don't know.
Yep.
There's not enough puzzle pieces in this box yet.
There's also, I
No.
think she also mentions that the crippled god is somewhat dissatisfied with Rulad.
Yeah.
Because it was meant to be Hanan Mosag, who would have screwed over the crippled god, but
Right.
The crippled god.
Yeah, that's
It's like so bitter towards worshippers.
I mean, they're always asking things from him, and then when he gives them his gifts in his own way, they're always like, "Why did you do this? I didn't want all this cancer." And he's like, "Too bad. I'm the crippled god. I'm not the god of healthiness."
okay. I guess this is going to be more like a very philosophical question. Like, can the cripple god change? Like, if his nature is if he's the god of your faces.
Can anyone change?
And all of his worshippers are forcing this aspect on him, it seems. At least according to Silchus Ruin.
Do I have to wait until the book, The Crippled God?
He's not even in that one.
That would be a very steep thing to do.
I mean, it is a Steve thing to do, and that's why he did it.
That's why he said the god is not willing.
I think I'm seeing where maybe I'm seeing where the ending of this series is going.
Ooh.
Just took us 7 books.
Yeah. I mean,
puzzle pieces, okay?
Think about it, collect your thoughts. Come to us next episode or something with a theory.
Maybe I'll come to you the episodes for book 10.
Write down your
right
prediction
before
now.
it gets revealed.
Write down your prediction now, and then you can show us if it was correct at the end.
Okay.
And if not,
All
then
right,
we can forget
continue
about
on.
it. It'll be like 2 years from now. So.
Hey, no.
Hopefully not.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6.
Nice.
Yay!
Chapter 6. Bivat discovers a destroyed village, then prepares for all-out war. Red Mask seizes control of the last great gathering of all and encounters a familiar one-eyed face. Clip joins the heroic quest and opens a gate to Curled Ghislaine.
Well, since y'all are being so negative about Clip, I want to bring up my boy Talk and just say that I'm glad he's back.
Oh man, and he lost his eye again.
And he's still Talk.
Wait, what do you mean again? He didn't have his eye in Memories of Ice.
Oh, didn't he?
No,
He did?
Anister lost it before.
Oh, right. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
He hasn't changed, and he's sitting in a pile of blood and other gross things, and he's still my boy old Talk.
He's still Steve's favorite whipping boy. Brought back into the story just to suffer more.
Even comments on it. He's like, I'm Talk the Unlucky now because the author won't leave me alone.
Yeah.
So Panda, end of this book, is Talk dead or in another body? Or both?
Oh, you mean in the end of Reaper's Gale?
Yeah.
So you're asking for my prediction?
Mhm.
You know, I think Talk is just an everlasting being.
So he won't die? Good.
Like the
No.
avatar of
Or
suffering.
or maybe somehow he will make the ultimate sacrifice and he's going to be the reason that the crippled god gets resolved. There's a prediction for you.
Here's the prediction. Can I just say that the Ganatok all are just the worst? Like, they had the Grey Swords. They didn't want to pay them. They abandoned them. They betrayed them. The Grey Swords almost won the war for them. They just had a little bit of support, and they killed all of their wolves that were following them and helping them out. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was despicable.
Man, these all.
You know, if Erickson had gone into as much detail of that betrayal, like how he did in Dead House Gates, like I would be so pissed. But because he didn't go into that much detail, like it's there, it's what happened. And especially when you see how Red Mask reacts when he finds out all the details of it, like I know I should feel really upset and really angry, but it's not nearly as emotional
Yeah, of
as
course.
Dead House.
Yeah. Like we didn't get to know the Grey Swords very well, right?
Yeah. But I mean, knowing Talk, right? Like cuz we got pretty close to Talk. But then he's not dead. He's still alive.
Mhm.
So there's some relief there.
Still alive again.
Yeah, and notably, the Grey Swords were massacred, like narratively speaking, pretty close to the introduction of the Grey Helms, which is neat, right?
Yeah, so when I was asking all those questions in Bone Hunters, I was like slyly trying to figure out if the timeline matched up and if there was a requirement that the Grey Swords be dead for there to be another mortal sword. Like, because it seemed like this prologue and like that having happened is recent, and it's too recent for that to match. Like that, therefore there would be like more than one mortal sword of Tog and Pandery at the same time, and more than one shield anvil, and more than one of all. And that I was trying to figure out, like, is that possible? Is this just the timeline being wrong? Is it and not mattering, or like do gods have like 3 different mortal swords? Because in Memories of Ice, it seems like they don't. And yeah.
Well, there is 2 Wolves of Winter, so maybe it's one gets to be mortal sword for one wolf, and the other gets to be for the other one.
But they say they're for both, right?
Yeah, they do.
They call themselves like the mortal sword of the Wolves of Winter, not of Tog or Fanderay.
The impression I get is that the mortal sword for the Grey Helms has been the mortal sword for the Grey Helms for a long time, but
Yeah, it seems like this. Yeah, it seems like that they're not following the same rules that that are set up in Memories of Ice, basically.
Yeah, and like there isn't hard rules for these things. I don't think
Rules can change.
and there wasn't like a god that came down and was like, and thus ye shall only have one mortal sword per god.
But yeah, but just the way they talk about it in Memories of Ice makes it seem like it's only one, because they're like, oh, that guy's up north somewhere, and that one's over there, and like it's just they talk about it as if it's like each god only gets one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know,
What
worshippers can be wrong.
truth?
Speaking of swords,
hmm.
did y'all already talk about Red Mask being first sword of the Kachane Jamal?
We did not.
We did not.
Yeah, you'd
Isn't that
expect
cool?
the first sword that could change them all to be could change them all.
But apparently not.
How about that? What a
And
development.
he's like, yeah. I guess like is he just like super powerful because he is like basically king of the Kachane Jamal now?
Well, he's got 2 of them following him, and he doesn't know why.
Yeah.
Well, Talk says he's the king. He says it's interchangeable with the first sword in the case of the Kachin Chamal.
Right.
Yeah, but it's not like he showed up in the narrative. It's like, now I command my 10,000 Kel hunters to destroy the Letheria
Not
Empire.
yet.
Not yet, yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah, just yep. That's a I think an important thing to keep in mind when thinking about Red Mask.
Mm-hmm.
The nation of Blue Rose. Man, what a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's I do find it funny how Clip isn't he's like part of a rebel group, but he was commanded by the ruling group of wizards, which was actually just one wizard commanding him. And even though that he was rebelling directly against that wizard, apparently the wizard is powerful enough that you don't go against what he tells you to do, even so.
Yeah.
Yep. And they worship Animander.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna see more of Animander in the rest of this book, right?
Well, if the people of Blue Rose have their way, then yes. Animander has not been around for a very, very, very long time for them, though.
They keep waiting.
They keep
Yeah, I imagine
waiting. They're
since the prologue was the last time he was in Lether.
Yeah.
Or that continent.
It's been many thousands of years. Yeah, I feel kind of bad for them. He just kind of screwed off. It was like, I have a
He's like,
sky
my
keep
brother
now.
will show up eventually. Bye.
Brother will show up eventually. I have a sky keep, but like honestly, I can't be bothered to float it all the way down here.
Sky keep is now bye-bye, so.
Yeah, and like he was ruling over like a couple hundred Teist Andy in Moonspawn. So, like really, I would think that he would have some kind of obligation to these people, but apparently he disagrees.
No. I mean, they still believe in him. I guess maybe he'll show up once they start like waning in their belief. And then he's like, "Oh, maybe I should come and like give them some TLC."
Well, he called them idiots in Gardens of the Moon. So,
well,
Baruch calls him the son of darkness. I just read this scene earlier today. So, Baruch calls him the son of darkness, and he's like, "Don't call me that, because that title's for fools who thinks I'm worthy of worship." So he basically thinks they're idiots, and so he's not going to come back. He doesn't.
He's a reluctant god.
Yeah, he doesn't want to.
Very reluctant god. Yeah.
I'd say reluctant is a soft way of putting it.
The Teist Andy that he rules over directly, like they're not far off from abject worship of him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll do whatever he says as if he is spouting the word of God, basically.
But that's only true because he says the things that are honorable. Because he like points out like, oh yeah, if I start being a jerk and betraying everyone, they'll kill me.
Yeah.
And if like they don't do it, Solanda will, and so will Caladan Burge.
Solana. Oh, Solana's so cool.
Yeah. Like it's so crazy that this like became relevant to our discussion of book 7. Like what? A book he's not even in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna bring this up again because I really want to know what's gonna happen to Byrne. Like I know there was like this, temporary solution for her illness, but like that's just a thread that it has been dangling since.
It sure has.
Yep.
Don't worry, Steve hasn't forgotten about it. Yeah, she's still being poisoned by the crippled god.
And like, so the whole Sick Warrens thing, is that just very contained?
Yeah, that specifically is pretty contained. Yeah.
But nobody is like, oh, I guess it's not spreading, so not getting worse. So I guess it's working.
Let's continue fighting amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
While this existential threat looms over our heads.
I love how it just like is like, okay, I put a band-aid on that, so let's let a few years go by while I don't deal with it.
Listen, we can't afford to deal with it now. And anyways, there are
Too
bigger people who
real.
should be dealing with it themselves. Yeah.
I am so ready for bed, guys.
I am also ready for you to go to bed.
This is the book that Stephen Erickson dedicated to Glenn Cook. That's neat.
Yep.
Ah.
All right. So that concludes this episode. If you want to join the read along and or contribute listener questions, check us out in the Legendarium's Discord. You can find us on thelegendarium.com. Also follow us on Twitter at Green Team Pod for updates and fun times. Check out the Legendarium podcast for Wheel of Time, Cosmere, Lord of the Rings content, and so much more. Thank you to our panelists, Ashaman, Janal as a boy, and Befuddled Panda. I'm here in fan. Until next time.
Janeth.
Good night.
Janeth
Janeth
as a boy.
You're gonna have to make that your username.
Yeah.
Also, thank you everyone for being patient with us. We're back for a little while.
For now.
I often tend to start out really strong with my sentences, and as I lose confidence, I start talking like
Yes, you
this.
do. You trail, and then you mumble.
Oh, I know this better than anyone.
Yes, because you had to listen to yourself so much.
I like that poem. That's a good one. I noticed that you weren't looking at the screen and instead using your book.
Line breaks.
All that work I put in.
I'm sorry.
Nothing.
If only you'd formatted it correctly.